So one of the sort of moments of Avatar is when this Jake Sully character wakes up in his new environment, and he's in a jungle that's completely surrounding him with these UV enlightened plants and animals and so forth. Well, in effect, he sees like an animal. A lot of animals, they see in UV. And parallel, this is what I'm trying to show you in these videos, that we're starting to see the effects of UV, because we've been accustomed to looking at ordinary light and thinking that this is sort of the only aspect of the sun because it's what's visible to us. But in fact, infrared and UV altogether is almost twice the intensity of just visible light alone. So just let us recap the basics about ultraviolet radiation, how it affects life on Earth and so forth. This is from NASA. So here's the light spectrum, and strangely, in this end we actually have sound up here. This is no joke. This is sound. So sound is a form of light, or frequency, if you want to say it like this. And once we go through the radio frequencies, we come first to infrared light, and then we come to the visible light. That's only this much. And then we have ultraviolet. Large chunk of what the sun puts out is this near infrared. Actually, it's 55% of the sun's total intensity, 700 to 3000 nanometers. The visible light is only 35%, and it's 400 to 700 nanometers. Ultraviolet is about 10%, and here it's written up as 200 to 400 nanometers, but it's not true. It's actually 10 to 400 nanometers. And what's more, it's only UVB and UVA that's measured, and UVA is the most common. UVB is the more dangerous, more high intensity, and UVC it's what's causing cell damage, but it's not supposed to reach Earth's surface. But we see several people, for example here, I think it's in Washington, measuring UVC, different places in North America. And here is another YouTuber, Mr. BBB, setting up a group measuring UVA and B. But I think, to my memory, he's also done UVC. And so what they are seeing is that UVB is going up, and it's going up. He in Washington recorded with 6 different meters that the radio is changing. So where you had before maybe just a tiny amount of UVB, now you're seeing this go up 10 to 40 times, and also registering tiny amounts of UVC. That's never been a part of the current mainstream science reporting, because it's simply assumed that it does not reach the surface. And so there's a whole underreported spectrum that we don't know much about, simply because the whole UV measurement is focused on this part here, closest to the visible. So it's actually only 310 to 400 that's being measured, and anything below is just being assumed that it never reaches the ground. If we just recap what sort of the mainstream science says, radiation at the longer UV wavelengths, 320 to 400 nanometers, called UVA, plays a helpful, essential role in formation of D vitamin, and plays a harmful role in that it causes sunburn in human skin and cataracts in our eyes. The incoming radiation at shorter wavelength, 290 to 320, falls within the UVB part of the electromagnetic spectrum. UVB causes damage at the molecular level. Let me just turn this off. To the fundamental building block of life, DNA. Well, could also be that UVB and UVC is actually cause of all mutation. So we have some periods where the magnetosphere decreases, and we see these evolutionary giant steps forward because there's simply a lot more DNA changing. It just breaks apart the DNA and enables faster mutation. In this article, they're just saying, oh, it's harmful and so forth. Living cells are smart. Over millions of years evolving the presence of UVB radiation, cells have developed the ability to repair DNA. Special enzyme arrives at the damaged site, removes the damaged section of DNA, and replaces it with the proper components. Yeah, so they are not talking much about UVC at all. It's just sort of a forgotten part, and they also claim here in the Antarctic increased exposure to UVB radiation due to the appearance of the ozone hole commonly results in at least 6 to 12% reduction in photosynthesis by phytoplankton in the surface waters. Well, again, it's probably because the magnetosphere is decreasing, but not especially over the Antarctic. We're not even experiencing an ozone hole, and where the magnetosphere is decreasing, there's no protection. So surface life starts to die, and it just goes through the food chains. It's sort of a natural cycle. So it is maybe influenced by various forms of geoengineering, chemtrailing that could be actually to protect us against the extreme levels of UV. Once you have more aerosols, like they're spraying into the air, you have more protection. But it could be that people doing this they don't know what they're doing, so they get other side effects, and maybe in theory it's working, but in practice it's not working, and so forth. It's another discussion. And here they go on to discuss this ozone, which I'm not going to go so much into in this video, but suffice it to say that just by looking at a statistic of worldwide UV, you can immediately see that higher UV levels have zero correlation to ozone levels. In fact, maybe the other way around. Maybe UV creating ozone, so you're not having ozone protecting against UV. You're seeing ozone as a marker for higher higher UV. And this is also what they found on the Mount Everest. They found surprisingly a high amount of ozone. I have the article somewhere. It was a British scientist measuring this, and that came as a surprise because they thought when you go up in altitude, you are going to see less ozone. But it also correlates with the data, UV data over Himalayas. I actually have some data from Tibet and India, where you can see that the UV levels are high, but not that high compared to it's one of the largest plateaus on Earth. It's Tibet is 3,000 to 500 to 5,000 as I recall, and Nepal is up to 3,000. I think the measurement I have from India is 2,800 meters, and it shows UV of 8 to 10, maybe 12, and the one in Tibet is up to 15, but it's nowhere near as high as South America, that has 10 to 20 and maximum 25, and it's peaking at 40 over the highest peaks. Let me just see if I can find this. This is Antarctica, where they say noontime UV indexes typically varies with between 4 to 7, but it can be as high as 14. But the 14, I've never seen a paper actually measuring this. 4 to 7 seems more indicative. And so it just tells you also that it has little to do with ozone. Those are fairly average readings. And here's another station from Antarctic 6 to 8. Let me just dig up this one from Tibet, okay? See here. No.